We know sports.
10-5 touchdown!
97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ, HD, Millville, Atlantic City, a Town Square media station. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
Oh, what a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Tuesday edition of Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank CLC. We are live as always on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. Glad to have you guys on board the show today. We got some Sixers, we got some Eagles, we got some Flyers. Our Flyers Insider for 97.3 ESPN.com will join us coming up at 6:15. Kevin Durso will join us as the Flyers have their Hall of Fame night officially tonight. The alumni game was last night. And then tonight is the actual game where Tocchet and Holmgren are going to be officially inducted. And then they will have the game 7:30. Coverage begins tonight on 97.3 ESPN. Durso will join us at 6:15 before the festivities get started over there up in Philadelphia. Also, we'll give you the latest on the Sixers and Ben Simmons, as you saw it over at 97.3 ESPN.com and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Ben Simmons is getting fined again. And this situation just keeps finding new ways to deteriorate. But before we get to any of that stuff, I want to get to the Eagles because last night on Monday Night Football, there was evidence for why the Eagles can get to the postseason this year. And it came in the form of the 49ers. That's right. When the 49ers beat the Rams last night, they showed everyone that there's a way to win in the NFL still, and that running the football is not archaic, that playing good defense is not old-fashioned. These concepts are not fraudulent. You saw a 49ers team last night that, frankly, embarrassed the Rams. Sean McVay and the entire Rams organization should be embarrassed. And everybody should tell Odell Beckham Jr. to dye his hair a normal color, because obviously running around with purple hair didn't help the situation, because all it did was draw attention to you. The fact that you've been there for like a day and a half. Von Miller got blasted by George Kittle on a block in the game last night. Von Miller, future Hall of Famer, got blasted by arguably the best blocking tight end of the NFL. And you saw a 49ers team that with Kyle Shanahan that outsmarted, outworked, and outcoached the entire Rams organization. They ran misdirection. They ran the ball up the middle. They ran the ball around the edges. They ran sweeps. They did bubble screens. They did everything and everything. And the Rams had no answer. And then the 49ers defense literally just pinned their ears back and said, we're coming for you, like it or not. And I understand the second Stafford interception was not really fully his fault because the ball got juggled about 5 times before it got intercepted. But the first interception was obviously them trying to force it to OBJ. And the rest of the game, Stafford was under duress constantly. And I'm watching the game and I'm thinking, everything we know about football is still there. Everything we've ever been told or taught about football, run the ball to set up the pass, play defense, all these things. The 49ers showed last night that playing football the right way is more important than having superstars. Star power is all over the Rams roster. But the star power didn't get them even close to winning a game last night. There is no chemistry on that team. I was listening to the Aaron Donald interview on Westwood One last night, part of the Monday Night Football coverage here on 97.3 ESPN, and he talked about how, Von Miller and I are still learning how to play together and what he likes to do and what I like to do. And I kept thinking, well, that doesn't sound great. It sounds more like you guys are still figuring things out. And then I'm watching the game, and Von Miller looked, well, no offense, but pretty easy to shut down. And I'm looking around, I'm thinking, man, this Rams team looks like a bad Big 12 team with a porous offensive line. I mean, Andrew Whitworth got whipped multiple times last night. And Stafford looked lost and confused. The entire offense had almost no life at all. Sean McVay looked lost and confused. And I loved it. I loved it the moment, I think it was the second quarter, when the camera on Sunday, on Monday Football's broadcast and ESPN TV switches over, and they're talking about the game. Obviously, I have the radio on. I'm listening here in the studio at that time, and they turn around and they start talking about, well, they've had some turnover here with the coaching staff, and I'm just like, okay. And I look up on the TV at the same thing that's on the radio. You see Raheem Morris on the television, and even Morris looks like, I don't know what I'm doing here. And this is the reason why the Eagles have a chance. Because if the Eagles stick to the fundamentals, if the Eagles do the one thing they've been doing, which is run the ball, play defense, guess what? They can go to the postseason. There is nobody ahead of them in the standings that's not one of the big boys that you're sitting there thinking, that team scares me. Or, man, let me tell you how dominant that team is. First of all, you already have tiebreakers over the Falcons and the Panthers. So it's not like if you end up with the same number of wins, you're going to be left out because of them. And there's nobody out there who's going to tell me that you're confident in the Panthers right now. Cam Newton can say he's back all he wants, but I still need to see the Panthers win more than one game. I'm not sure if the Vikings won on Sunday or if the Chargers lost that game, honestly, when you go back and watch it. The Falcons have the same number of wins as the Eagles, but they have one less loss right now because their bye week was earlier. And there's nobody that can tell me the Falcons are a better team than the Eagles. Right now, the only team ahead of the Eagles in the standings that is not the Packers, the Cardinals, the Cowboys, and the Bucks, or what I call the big boys. The Rams looked horrible, but I'm going to assume they'll figure it out eventually. The Saints have no quarterback, but a really good defense. And the Eagles have a chance this Sunday to take them out. Because the Saints lost a rock fight with the Titans on Sunday. That game was ugly. But the Saints are a good enough fundamental team with a very good head coach to keep games interesting. We're going to learn a lot about Matt Rule the rest of this year with the Panthers. I like Matt Rule a lot as a coach, but we're going to find out, is Matt Rule as good as I think he can be? I think Mike Zimmer's time in Minnesota is the past due date is already expired on that milk carton, okay? He's done up there. I think that the Vikings are hanging on by a thread at this point. I think the 49ers are a very good football team if they can get healthy again. And the Falcons, like I told you, they're not better than the Eagles. So the Eagles have a legitimate chance of reaching the postseason. And the 49ers showed you the blueprint. If you run the ball, play fundamental football, let the defense go after the quarterback, you can win games in this league. And by the way, the Packers won an ugly game against Seattle against a future Hall of Fame quarterback in Russell Wilson. And the Seahawks looked absolute garbage yesterday. So Seattle is pretty much cooked at this point. So why not the Eagles? Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of CLC. We'll get more into the Sixers a little bit later in the show. You can also join the conversation on the text board 609-403-0973. You can DM the show through the 973 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of CLC. And we are live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. Join the show coming up on the other side. Kevin Durso live from Philadelphia as the Flyers are preparing to not just induct Tocchet and Holmgren into the Hall of Fame, but they actually have a game tonight versus the Flames. Coverage begins at 7:30 tonight. You hear all the action right here on 97.3 ESPN.
7.3 ESPN and the free mobile app with Tim Saunders and Steve Coates calling all the play-by-play action.
The Flyers host the Calgary Flames.
Coverage begins at 7 p.m. It's Philadelphia Flyers hockey on the radio home of the Flyers in South Jersey. 97.3 ESPN and listen live on the free mobile app.
It's game time. Football season is in full swing, and you can catch all the NFL action at the FanDuel Sportsbook in Bally's Hotel and Casino, Atlantic City. It's time to get in on all the games you love. Experience sports betting done right with live streaming games, food and beverage, self-service betting kiosks, and more. Get your game face on and score big this weekend when you bet at FanDuel Sportsbook in Bally's off the boardwalk, Atlantic City. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Flyers hockey today on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Josh Hennig hanging out with you here in the Map Like Kia Studios. We'll head up to Philadelphia right now as the Flyers get ready to take on the Flames up there at the Wells Fargo Center. Flyers hockey, by the way, 7:30 tonight because you have the Hall of Fame induction ceremony, and then the Flyers can actually play hockey with the current team. And joining us right now is our Flyers Insider, Kevin Durso, right here on 97.3 ESPN. Kevin, how are you doing today, and how is the environment up there for the ceremony tonight?
Well, little late arriving, I'd say. It's not really packed here yet, and the ceremony's supposed to start in about 10, 15 minutes here. So I'm hoping everybody's on the concourse right now, just getting everything they want to have before the ceremony, maybe a meal or a beer or something like that before taking their seats, because I would expect a lot in the actual bowl of the arena at this point, and we're not quite there yet, but I'm expecting a lot of good stuff. I heard there was a good crowd here last night for the alumni game that was held here, and certainly I would expect nothing less when they have a night like this, especially when you put in two members who have been in the organization for a long time, who have been a part of this team and this franchise for many years. I would think that you're going to have a good crowd and a good showing of support, especially for that and the amount of people that I think are back in town to celebrate them.
Well, I'm assuming that there are a lot of people who may have been at last night's game, the alumni game, who I don't know if they're coming back for today's game or not. So that'll be interesting to see as well. How many people were there last night are back tonight as well, because that was a packed house for the alumni game last night.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I wasn't able to see it in person. I wasn't here last night. I used the opportunity. There's 3 home games this week, so I used the opportunity to take a little bit of a night off for a change. It was much more fun in games than the real deal stuff we got going on after the ceremony tonight, but certainly those events pack it in all the time, and it's always great to see. There was a lot of, as I noticed on that roster, a lot of first-timers that came back to play in an alumni game that hadn't before for the Flyers. You're only going to see that grow in the years to come, just with the amount of players that continue to play for this organization. I mean, think about a guy, one of the goalies last night was Mike McKenna, who had just played for the team within the last couple of years, and didn't really play for the Flyers as much as he was part of the minor league system, just to kind of be a support and be a guy in if they really needed another goalie who could come up and play. But it still shows the impact being for this organization when a guy like that, who only spent part of 1 year here, chooses to come back and be part of an alumni game and has a blast doing it. So obviously you get a bunch of different people like that in here. You get some of the older guys as well. Joe Watson suited up last night, and he's pushing 80 at this point. So, doesn't slow down any at this point. He's still going strong and still wants to play and still has the competitive fire that he had back in the 70s. So no question about it. You get players from all generations involved, and we're going to see a lot of that tonight for sure.
Now, one of the storylines coming into this game tonight is people want to know what is going on with Ryan Ellis. So what is the update you have for us on that front?
I wish I had more to tell you than just we're kind of waiting to see how long this turns into. I mean, I'll take the words that we got previously to heart here. Week to week sounds about right. I mean, let's not sugarcoat it. That's what it was before. They said day to day. It turned into week to week. It is again now. And I think now the question is there a surgery that's going to be involved in this? And they're still trying to find out. I don't think it's encouraging to hear that doctors say and more tomorrow to probably get more opinions on what should be done. But that being said, it's going to be something longer term. I don't think there's any reason to go crazy about a timeline just yet. Placing him on injured reserve realistically means nothing, in my opinion, because it's not a long-term injured reserve. That's not the same thing that Kevin Hayes was just on, where you automatically rule out 10 games and 24 days right off the bat. That's only a 7-day. Regular injured reserve is only 7 days. Well, that's not really that significant right now, and it's going to be longer than that, I can tell you that much. So there's no distinction of how long this could be. We can speculate as much as we want to, but until they actually say what's needed, whether it's a surgery or no surgery, and can put more of a firm timetable on it, that's when we'll really be able to tell. But I kind of speculated myself, just kind of assuming, if you're saying week to week, I assume you're talking the rest of the month at the very least. There's not that much time left into it. You're going to have more between now and December 1st. That's another long stretch of time for a player to be out, and you're not that far away. Maybe only about 2 or 3 games away based on the 9 he's already missed from him missing already a quarter of the season. So it's significant no matter how you spin it, but we don't exactly know for sure how long it's going to be just week to week for sure.
97.3 ESPN.com Flyers Insider Kevin Durso joins us right now on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN at Kevin_Durso on Twitter. Following for all your Flyers and NHL coverage. Now, the Flyers, they did get Kevin Hayes back. What were your takeaways of what we have seen from Kevin Hayes in the short amount of time he's played?
Pretty much as expected. He had some good jump in the early going, but as the game wore on, he didn't have the legs quite yet. And that's to be expected. He hasn't played in a long time, and he's trying to kind of get a feel for the game back and get into game shape, as they call it. So he's still working through that. It can only help as he goes forward. I don't see the harm, as long as he's still healthy, obviously. I don't really see the harm in playing him on I don't really see the harm in him playing on Saturday, just because you get him an opportunity to play throughout the throughout the whole course of the 3 periods. You get a full game in, and you really get a sense of what it's like to play in a game again, as opposed to sitting out and waiting. I kind of thought they were going to wait to hold him out until this game. After that, I really can't say what they were going to do from there. I assumed he would be back by now, and for him to come back a game earlier, it doesn't hurt you at all.
Now, obviously, anytime the Flyers play Calgary, the topic of Johnny Hockey comes up. Johnny Gaudreau on the Flames, Jersey guy. That's always a topic I feel like has been circulated numerous times, Kevin, about, could he come to the Flyers? Would the Flyers trade for him? Well, obviously, last year the Flyers traded Voracek, but they traded him for Cam Atkinson, not for Johnny Gaudreau. So, what is your perspective on any potential reunion of Johnny Gaudreau with potentially coming back to this area?
Well, it just remains to be seen. It's not going to go away until he's officially either re-signed with Calgary beyond the season or until he actually goes somewhere in free agency. Whatever happens, it's going to be a question until there's a firm answer. And it's going to kind of revolve around who's the hometown team, what's the place that everybody pegs him to go to. So until there's a firm answer to the question, it's going to come up. It's going to be a question. They could sure use a guy who does what he does still. I mean, even with Cam Atkinson, they could use a guy who does what he does. There's no question. But at the same time, you've got to really figure out a creative way, again, to make it work financially. And I don't know that there's a good and easy to do it right this second. And it probably requires some more off-season gymnastics from Chuck Fletcher to really do that and to see where it goes. But ultimately, I think that it's going to be a question. You're going to hear his name constantly. It's kind of interesting that we're going to be done with these games with Calgary already in the season, at this point in the season. Because if it was later, if it got closer to the trade deadline or to the offseason, it would only be louder. It would only be much more involved in where they think this could go and where everybody seems to think this could go. But it's funny you bring up the specific trade of the Voracek-Atkinson trade, because there was just a story on ESPN.com earlier today about how they ruled that the best trade or best offseason move because it worked out well for both sides so far. Atkinson's got the 6 goals early in the season, kind of cooled off a little bit in the last few games, but obviously capable of scoring in bunches. And Jake Voracek is currently a point-per-game player with Columbus right now, only 1 goal, but 12 assists to go with it, and he's helping them win games, which is important, obviously. So it seems to be one of those deals, as I kind of thought it would be when it happened. It was going to probably favor both sides a little bit, that there was something to be gained from both sides, and it's shown early on because Cam Atkinson certainly helped the Flyers win games, and Jake Voracek's helped Columbus win some games, so it kind of all applies.
It's funny you mentioned that because I saw some chatter online about people were saying, hey, are the Flyers really that good? We thought they'd be better and all this stuff. And, I understand people are frustrated that Ellis really hasn't been on the ice. But let's be realistic. This team has actually played very well. And to be 7-4-2 is not cheap. You know what I mean? It's not like they're winning by accident or they're a bad team or anything like that. I think that considering no Kevin Hayes to start the season and you're 7-4-2 is actually an accomplishment.
It is, and at the same time, there's concerns for the process nonetheless, because you look at a game like Friday's and you say the only reason you got 2 points and the only reason you beat a team like Carolina is because your goaltender was off the charts good. And that helps to win games. It certainly is the great catalyst for all these teams. The team that has great goaltending is going to win games. And I led off my takeaways article right away from that game with the quote that Alain Vigneault uses a lot. I'm not going to apologize for having great goaltending. And he shouldn't have to. If you've got it, then you absolutely need to use it to your advantage. But in saying that, I don't think you can completely 1,000% rely on it either, because if you have to lean on every game, it's just not going to hold up every single night. You're not going to get those one goal performances every single night. I think you saw that a little bit with the Dallas game, giving up 4. It's going to happen, and it's not always going to be all on the goalie. It's not going to be the goalie's fault. It's going to be you're starting to rely too heavily on him making constant grade A saves, and it's got to change at some point. The thought process was when Ryan Ellis came back and when Kevin Hayes came back, maybe the process would change. Maybe something would start to shift in a proper direction here, and we would see more of a sound process going forward. Now we don't really get to know the answer because there's no Ryan Ellis for the foreseeable future. We'll see what happens with Hayes. Obviously, there's chances for the forward group to evolve a little bit and for the process to change, but they're going to be leaning on somebody who's not really a top 6 defenseman, at least maybe right now. They could certainly down the road turn to a prospect. Right now, it's going to be Nick Seeler again. He's been in as your 7th before. You don't want to lean on that too heavily, and I kind of wondered if we were reaching the end of the rope with guys like that in those roles. How much longer could you go with them in the lineup where you're still seeing the results for you because the goalie's been really good or something like that? You need to see it really to take shape, and it really has to start right away with all the constant games they have against tough opponents. Calgary tonight, Tampa Bay Thursday, Boston Saturday, and it just continues from there.
All right, Kevin, before I let you go, I know we got the Hall of Fame ceremony coming up in just a couple minutes, but I want to ask you, the key for the Flyers to win tonight is what?
Well, I'll try to give you one kind of general one, but certainly it starts with the goaltending again. And if you can keep getting repeat performances from Carter Hart, who's in goal again tonight, it's going to help you. I think the key to tonight, though, actually is trying to find a way to get through the wall that Calgary put up in the last game that you played against them. Remember, they only had 4 shots on goal halfway through the game against Calgary a couple weeks ago. That doesn't cut it no matter who you play. And they really need to figure out a way to get some traffic to the net, to get shots on net, and to continue to try to drive the offensive side. Because last time these two teams played, Carter Hart gave you that kind of game. He gave you a performance that was good enough to win, and you need to kind of deliver your end in offense, and even defensive players who can step up and deliver in those spots. You get power plays. You got to find a way to try to take advantage of those this time around because you can't just sit there and let that go.
He's Kevin Durso. Follow him on Twitter at Kevin_Durso, our Flyers Insider for 97.3 ESPN.com. We are less than an hour away from the start of Flyers hockey tonight on 97.3 ESPN FM, and you can listen on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Kevin, great stuff. Enjoy everything up there tonight. We'll catch up soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Josh.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. We'll get to your guys' thoughts and comments now here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Obviously, we open the show talking about the Eagles. We just hit on the Flyers. I'll get to the Sixers stuff in just a little bit. We'll get to the messages in the order they came in over at 609-403-0973. Dan from EHC has 2 questions. He says, is it just me or does Stafford stare down where he's throwing? Dan, here's the problem. I think last night's game, Stafford was doing a little bit more seeing throwing than anticipating because there was no Robert Woods. He's done for the year. It's his first game with Odell Beckham Jr. after only having 1 full practice. And you were hoping that Van Jefferson was going to be a guy that stepped up and filled a void, and he was unable to. So I think that's not Stafford's forte. He's not a guy who's a see it and throw a quarterback historically. He's a guy who puts the ball in his playmaker's hands. We saw it with Calvin Johnson in Detroit. We've seen him do it this year with guys like Woods and Kupp with the Rams. I think last night was just a bad game for him because I think that Sean McVay got grossly outcoached and just completely manipulated last night. And I think Stafford suffered for it because, remember, McVay likes to be in that quarterback's ear up until the very last second. He can't be out. Remember, coaches can be in the quarterback's ear, I believe it's until 12 seconds on the play clock. So McVay loves to chatter in the quarterback's ear the whole time, giving him information, which is great when things are going good, but it's not good when things are going bad, because then you might be giving the quarterback too much information and overwhelming him. And Dan, from EHT's second question is, how about if Hurts balls out the rest of the season like the last 2 games? Maybe MVP. Don't forget, I am an overreaction everyday Philly fan, Josh. Yeah, MVP is an overreaction. But I think, as Mike Gill addressed earlier in the Sports Bash, if Hurts continues to play at the level he is and better, I think you have your quarterback. Look, you look at the numbers of McNabb through his first 14 games and Hurts through his 14 games. Hurts has less interceptions. Hurts has a better completion percentage. Hurts has rushed for more yards. Hurts has more yards per game, more yards per attempt. And McNabb, honestly, if you go back to the 99 season, he was really bad in some of those games. So I think that for Jalen and for Donovan, the thing needs to be the same. Patience, let the season play out. Don't make any rash decisions. And like I told you guys last week, when I look at the quarterback class coming out of college, there's no one special. Are they good? Yes. Are there quarterbacks who I like? Absolutely. But there's no Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning. There's no elite quarterback coming out of college this year. Why would you give up on a guy like Jalen Hurts for some solid quarterback? Do you want a Baker Mayfield? Do you want another Sam Darnold? Do you want Kirk Cousins? Because that's what you're getting if you draft one of these quarterbacks and you move on from Hurts. And if you draft Malik Willis, you're just getting another Jalen Hurts. You're getting another quarterback who is still nowhere near his prime and is going to need time to develop. Matt Corral is nowhere refined as a quarterback, and I think that he's probably a better version of Baker Mayfield at this point. Depending on your perspective on Mayfield. You look at a guy like Sam Howell. I'm worried he's like Sam Darnold. I look at a guy like Kenny Pickett. I see an athletic version of Kirk Cousins. I don't see elite quarterbacks in this draft class. I see quarterbacks who are starters in the NFL, but I don't see elite players. So why would I give up on Jalen Hurts for somebody who is not going to be significantly better? Over on the YouTube channel, Jeff chimes in and says, when does Sanders come back? So Sanders can come back this week. Obviously, the Eagles have not officially activated him yet, but he can come back this week. So I think that's something to keep an eye on. Whether he comes back or not, I'm not worried about it. I'm intrigued, but I'm not worried about when Sanders comes back, because I just believe that if Sirianni just keeps doing what he's doing, Sanders being there is not going to change how they play as an offense. I think he can add to the offense, but I don't think he changes the offense. 8-Ball chimes in with a couple things. First about the Eagles, he says, do you think the Eagles will draft another running back? And do you think we should get a running back in the top 3 picks? Absolutely not. Unless the guy is of Ezekiel Elliott's potential or better, you don't draft a running back high. Look what happened with Saquon Barkley. The Giants picked him instead of a quarterback, and now they still need a quarterback. And Saquon's been injured. The offensive line stinks. There's only so much a running back can do in today's game. Even a guy like Christian McCaffrey, they're winning games with and without him in Carolina. Running backs are not game changers. I would never draft a running back that high. Draft game changers. Draft a Kayvon Thibodeau, the pass rusher from Oregon. Draft a elite defensive game breaker, or the next big quarterback, or some player who's going to change the game. 8-Ball goes on to say, I think we should get a wide receiver, offensive line, and linebacker with the first 3 picks. Here's the thing. You don't need another young wide receiver. We have enough young wide receivers. If I'm the Eagles, I got to make a decision about Greg Ward. And I might consider moving on from Greg Ward and getting a veteran in here at wide receiver. I don't think it can hurt. Greg Ward basically is your veteran right now. I don't think that's good enough. I'm not drafting another wide receiver in the first round. I think that you have talent at wide receiver right now. Devonta Smith is your wide receiver 1. I think he's proven that the entire year. I think that Quez Watkins, if he can just be more consistent, he can be a consistent contributor to this team. Jalen Reagor, I think, still has talent. Maybe he's not worthy of a first-round pick, but I think he still has talent. And you're keeping John Hightower around for a reason, right? I mean, for whatever reason, they're keeping that guy around. So I think the Eagles have talent at receiver. And listen, Greg Ward is a very good, serviceable wide receiver. But you might be better off with a veteran who's not Greg Ward. You mentioned offensive line. I think the Eagles are one of the 5 best offensive lines in the NFL right now. I think Landon Dickerson's a road grader. I think Mailata is proven to be way better than people expected him to be. Jason Kelsey, he's still one of the best centers in the NFL. If you feel that Nate Herbig is not a good backup, maybe go out and get another center to be the backup or the heir apparent, unless you expect Dickerson to be the heir apparent. Sayamalo was playing well before he got injured. Brandon Brooks was playing well before he got injured. And Lane Johnson is still a top-tier right tackle. I don't know why you need another offensive lineman. And then with linebacker, you need linebacker. But how many linebackers actually are worthy of top 3, top 5, top 10 picks? It's very few far and in between. I have to double check the rankings, but I think the last guy who got drafted at high was Luke Kuechly, I think. So linebackers are not the game breakers they used to because they're not as heavily utilized in defenses as they used to be. Linebackers have been minimized because so much, nickel and dime defense. The focus is on cornerbacks and pass rushers more than linebackers. And then the other question that 8 Ball has before we hit the break is, people are ridiculous. Like, we have a whole season ahead of us. How can they say the Flyers don't look good 11, 12 games into a season? You know why they say that? Because people are impatient. We live in an impatient society. Nobody wants development. No one wants growth. No one wants anybody to get better. They just want everything right here, right now. Game Night here on 97.3 ESPN being brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook inside Bally's Hotel Casino in Atlantic City. With football and basketball season in full swing, you can catch all the action inside FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's off the boardwalk in Atlantic City. It's time to get on all the games you love. Experience sports betting done right with live streaming games, food and beverage, self-service betting kiosks, and more. Get your game face on and score big this weekend when you bet with FanDuel Sportsbook only at Bally's off the boardwalk in Atlantic City. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. We got messages from James as well as others. We'll get to those comments coming up on the other side right here on Game Night, as well as I'll give you my thoughts on the latest Ben Simmons news right here on 97.3 ESPN FM. And don't forget, you can DM the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. All your news and updates on the Phillies, Eagles, Sixers, Flyers, and high school sports over at 97.3 ESPN.com and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. I'm Josh Hennig, and this is Game Night.
It's Sixers basketball tonight on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
Embiid beyond the arc, fires for 3. It's up and good. Embiid with a clutch triple.
The Sixers are in Utah to face the Jazz. Coverage begins at 10 p.m. Philadelphia 76ers basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN.
It's game time. Football season is in full swing, and you can catch all the NFL action at the FanDuel Sportsbook in Bally's Hotel and Casino, Atlantic City. It's time to get in on all the games you love. Experience sports betting done right with live streaming games, food and beverage, self-service betting kiosks, and more. Get your game face on and score big this weekend when you bet at FanDuel Sportsbook in Bally's off the boardwalk, Atlantic City. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Before you sell or trade your vehicle, you should go to Bennett Chevy and get the most for your trade. This month, Bennett Chevy starts the bidding on trades at $7,000. Yes, Bennett will give you a minimum $7,000 for any old clunker you can push, pull, or tow towards any pre-owned vehicle in stock. And remember, we'll buy yours even if you don't buy ours. And if we start at $7,000 for junk, how much more do you think we'll pay for a good running vehicle? Grab your title or payment book and get the absolute most for your trade today. Want a brand new vehicle? While others are charging a fortune for new vehicles, Bennett still rejects any opportunity to charge 1 penny over MSRP. Stuck in a lease? Bennett can get you out early. All makes and models. So come see what your vehicle's worth today at Bennett, where there's absolutely no obligation and no pressure, because our non-commissioned sales staff is paid based on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. Find new roads at Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig back here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Want to get to some of your guys' thoughts, comments, and we'll also touch on the latest Ben Simmons news over at 97.3 ESPN.com, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Don't forget Sixers basketball at 10 p.m. tonight. Following Flyers hockey, Flyers at 7:30 taking on the Flames. Sixers in Utah. They'll play the Jazz tonight. So we got a double header of Philly sports action right here on 97.3 ESPN. A couple more messages to get to. One person on text message has 3 quick hit thoughts. He says, if Jalen Hurts was the rookie this year, he would win Rookie of the Year. Certainly possible. I mean, the rookie crop is not exactly bursting at the seams like it was last season. Texter also says, what if Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson want to play in Philadelphia this offseason? Listen, I have said numerous times, Texter, to me, you don't give up on Jalen Hurts unless you get someone elite, like a Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson level player. I'm not giving up on Jalen Hurts to get the next Kirk Cousins. That's my position. I'm sticking with it. Listen, if somebody else would rather have Kirk Cousins than Jalen Hurts, that's them. It's not me. I want guys who are winners. And Jalen Hurts has the intrinsic qualities of somebody who's a winner. Now, if you want a dude who puts up good fantasy stats, Hurts can do that too. But Hurts is not going to go out there and pass for 4,000 yards in a season right now. Kirk Cousins can do that. But guess what? People like Kirk Cousins and Andy Dalton, they don't win. They're not winners. They're good quarterbacks who get you to a certain point but can't get you beyond that point. Jalen Hurts has shown you that he is a leader and people follow him. It's kind of like what Mike Singletary said. I want winners. I want leaders. I don't want Kirk Cousins. Now, if you're telling me that I can get Russell Wilson in here, okay. You talking about a future Hall of Famer? Cool, man. But it's not a coincidence that Jalen Hurts is doing things that only guys like McNabb and Randall Cunningham have done before in an Eagles uniform. It's not a coincidence. Texter has one more thing. Point says the Cowboys just drafted Micah Parsons 11 and it changed their defense. Again, that's 11, not top 3. See, you guys are conflating things here. I'm not saying don't draft defense. I'm the guy who's told you guys to draft defense numerous times. I'm the one that my past co-hosts like Deshaun Hendricks, who's still my boy, love him to death, but he always makes fun of me. All you care about is defense. Yeah, because defense is the make or break in sports. Anybody can score points. Can you play defense? That makes a difference. I've been saying this for years now. I'm no Johnny come lately to the defensive conversation. My point is that in the NFL, historically, how many linebackers have been drafted in the top 10? That's all. I'm not saying the Eagles shouldn't draft a linebacker. Don't conflate the two, folks. I understand some of you sometimes only hear what you want to hear. But I'm telling you, year in and year out, linebacker is a position that is not valued as highly. And I would argue that Micah Parsons is not a linebacker. He's a defensive freakazoid that happens to play the position of linebacker. Just like a guy like Kevon Thibodeau or a Chase Young, who it's a shame that he's injured for the rest of the year, are not purely defensive ends. Their actual position is basically defensive game record. Defensive, a guy who changes defenses. So Micah Parsons got drafted 12th overall this past year. I'm going through the list really quick for you guys live on the radio here. Isaiah Simmons with 8th overall 2 years ago. Now, again, he's a guy people weren't sure. Is he a linebacker? Is he a safety? They just know he's a game wrecker. Okay. He was 8th overall. All right. Who else has been drafted high as a linebacker? Let's go to the year before his draft. We'll go to, what is this, 2019? Yeah, 2019. Highest linebacker picked was Devin White, 5th overall. Again, game-changing linebacker. Game wrecker. Not your average run-of-the-mill dude. Most people can name linebackers, and they're not game wreckers. They're just run-of-the-mill dudes. Roquan Smith, freak, special player, 8th overall. So again, you can draft a linebacker in the top 10. I'm not against that. But I'm saying, don't give me some average Joe Schmo. Okay? Another message came in here during the break. We're going to get to that really quick. James chimes in, and so does Jay. So James and Jay are on the same page, bringing up Kyle Hamilton, the safety from Notre Dame. Now, here's the question. Is he a safety or is he a linebacker? Because Mark Barron was a safety at Alabama, and he became a hybrid linebacker. Jamal Adams plays safety, but he functions more as a hybrid linebacker running all over the field. So I like Kyle Hamilton. I think the kid is special. But like linebacker, the NFL doesn't value safety like they do linebacker. So they value corners, they value pass rushers. Would I like to see them draft a guy like a Kyle Hamilton? Sure. Like him. But it's very rare that those guys go that high. So now look, if you walk out of the draft with Kyle Hamilton and Kevon Thibodeau, I'm thrilled. But I can't promise you that's going to happen with the Eagles. I can't. Because the Eagles are a team that is still in transition. They are still evolving from what Doug Peterson was doing to what Nick Sirianni's doing, from what Jim Schwartz did to what Jonathan Gannon did. And it's obvious that players in Jonathan Gannon's scheme that he needs are not the same player that Jim Schwartz needed. Now, Gannon still needs to evolve and get a lot more consistent with his play calling and his putting players in position to be successful. But again, go around the NFL. You can win with good and solid players on defense if they're coached properly. Look at the 49ers last night. They only have a handful of guys who are special. Everyone else is good. They're not great. They have a couple of great players. The rest of them are just good. You can win with that. That's why the 49ers got to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. People forget the San Francisco 49ers were in the Super Bowl and were about 9 minutes away from winning it until Patrick Mahomes turned on that switch and went from regular Patrick Mahomes to supernova Patrick Mahomes. So, listen, I think the Eagles can go out and get some of the guys you're talking about. Kyle Hamilton, yes. Zach Harrison, another guy out there. I like him too. But let's realize that until we see the actual draft order, that's when we'll know. But do I want to see the Eagles go defense? Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, before we get out of here, I promised on the Ben Simmons stuff. I wrote more about this 973ESPN.com. For those who don't know, Ben Simmons has been fined again. All right, Ben Simmons has been fined because he basically wouldn't go with the team on the road trip. Now, this is a very dicey situation because, and we'll get into this more tomorrow when we have more time. The Ben Simmons thing comes down to this. Ben Simmons doesn't treat the Sixers like his employer. He treats them like someone who's bothering him. At the end of the day, take the sports out of it. Ben Simmons does not want to communicate or cooperate with the person he signed his employment contract with. Mental health, whatever the issue is, Ben Simmons thinks he's better than you, who's listening and watching me. He thinks he has to live by the same rules of professionalism that everyone else has to. And that's the problem with Ben Simmons at the end of the day. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. I'll catch you tomorrow.